All right. Okay, so three, two, one. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Down to Business podcast here with Tamar Turner. Look, it's a happy Friday on my end. I don't know when you're going to be hearing this or what day of the week it'll be on your end, but nonetheless, I'm saying all of that to say it's been a good week. I really have to appreciate Cody for just the accommodations. As he even just spoke to before we click play, life happens. And if life could happen, it'll definitely happen. But Cody was very accommodating. He was very just, open and flexible for us to get back on here, for us to really get down to business. So I'm excited for him to get into everything that we're here to talk about today, really because we all need it in some capacity. It's something that, if you want to be in the best position in life, if you really want to, achieve those goals, have that beautiful family, have that wealth, break those generational curses and everything like that. This is really kind of that stepping stone to building that foundation and getting there. So as y'all know in my intros, I kind of like to walk on eggshells a little bit. I don't like to give too much, but I also like to kind of, take a deeper dive. But obviously I want Cody to come on here and do everything, tell y'all everything, and obviously be a resource to you or someone who you may know. But before we get into all of that, Cody, how you doing? Everything? How are you doing today? How's everything on your end?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Football's back,
It's back.
so I'm feeling good. But no, man, can't complain too much. I'm very blessed, and I'm excited to, talk with you and have a good conversation today.
Got you. So for those of y'all who are not looking, Cody does have on is that that's
Detroit Lions,
the
bro.
Lions I'm looking at, baby. So yeah, Fire actually had a pretty good commercial too that they debuted yesterday too that I was very much a fan of too. So I'm
Mhm.
liking that. I would say ever since Hard Knocks, I've become a hidden Lions fan in the sense,
Yeah.
I couldn't watch that Hard Knocks series without really wanting to root for them and really give them all. So all right, we could talk about football all day, obviously, but we're
I
here to
know,
really
dude.
talk about something just a bit more important, just for everybody's happiness. So now I know we're going to have people from your side. We're going to have people from my side. We're probably going to have some newcomers, maybe even some mutuals along the way. But to bring everybody up to speed, to put everybody on the same playing field, can you just do two things for me? Can you, one, just tell me a little bit about yourself? And then can you, two, just tell me what brings you on the Down to Business podcast today?
Sure. So my name is Cody Sizemore. I am the founder, owner of Sizemore Financial Coaching. And basically what that is I'm a financial coach and I help people with several different types of things. Number one is I love helping people just get a better grasp of how to manage their money, getting themselves out of debt, building up their savings, getting started with investing. And a lot of the people that I talk to are people who have aspirations of starting a business, but they just feel like they can't do it because they're stuck in their job because they need that money kind of thing. And, one of the goals that I work with people a lot is just, helping them get to the point where their finances are so healthy that they feel really confident for taking that next leap of faith and that next step in their careers. So that's what I kind of do. I also, put a really heavy emphasis on the I would say like the mental and emotional aspects of money as well, because like almost like the money psychology, because I found that is like one of the biggest drivers of people's either failures or successes with money themselves. So that's kind of like who I am, how I serve people, and why I'm here as well. Talk to people who are either business owners right now who are looking to get their finances more organized so that they can maximize their profits, or two, help people get financially healthy so that they can feel confident in order to start that new business.
I like that. So meeting people at different points in the journey, depending on what
Mhm.
their comfort level is, or maybe even their education. So touched on a few things there that I want to take a bit of a deeper dive into. So the first thing though is really the origin story in a sense. With finances, with the financial industry, it's not something that is the easiest thing. I feel like
Mhm.
everybody may have an opinion, everybody may have an experience, everybody
Sure.
may have not so good experience with things like that. So for you, what did what propelled you to take that leap of faith to become a business owner, to step into this realm, but also be of a resource and a light to others? Because it's one thing to be a business owner, but it's one thing to be a business owner offering a product or a service or some help, or to be a resource to someone else. So for you, why did you decide to go that route?
Yeah, this is a great question. Because I may have one of the more unique stories as far as like why I got into finances, as compared to a lot of people in the financial industry. So, as you might be able to tell a little bit from like the black shirt and like all the arm of tattoos and stuff like that, I come from the music industry actually. So, I was in a national touring band, was recording with like multi-platinum record producers, stuff like that. And then after the band was done, I then moved into the concert booking industry. So that's what I did for a living, was just booking concerts. And COVID came and all the concerts went away, and that's when I kind of made the shift over to coaching. But it goes a little bit deeper into what actually led up to me actually stepping into this space. And it goes back to when I was in the band. The band was doing great. Like, we were playing, all over the country, playing like these massive festivals, recording with that producer. Everything was amazing. And unfortunately, the one thing that wasn't amazing was like my own personal finances. Like, I was living paycheck to paycheck. I had a horrible spending problem. I had a ton of debt, no savings, like all this kinds of stuff, right? And at first, I kind of like embraced that because I was like, this is how I earn my stripes. Like, it's the starving artist, But really, dude, like, it led to me living basically 8 months out of the year in our van, basically surviving off of like $5 a day to eat, to do whatever I needed to do. So that was like just enough for me to get like, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and maybe like a Chef Boyardee, like a cold can of Chef Boyardee ravioli that I would like throw into the dashboard and heat up in the sun in Arizona and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, at first I loved it, but man, after like 3-4 years of doing that, it just started to catch up with me. And I just remember that there was this one time when we were driving through the night. We were in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma, and we stopped at this gas station to like fuel up, to, get a snack, like whatever it might be. And I pulled out my wallet, and there was no money in my wallet. So I was like, okay, no problem. I'm sure I have something on like my card, right? So I pull up my bank app, and I had $1.03 in my bank. And in that moment, I just felt like this huge weight come over me. And I was like, how in the world could I ever let myself get to this place? You know what I mean? Dude, I just remember like I went into our trailer because I was like feeling like super overwhelmed. I think I was having an anxiety attack, to be honest with you. Um, like my hands, my head just fell into my hands, and I just started crying, you know. And it was in that moment that I was like, I need to fix this. I need to fix this. So after we got home from that stretch of shows, I went down this like rabbit hole of trying to learn and figure out everything that had to do with money. Um, and I had to tell the guys, I was like, hey guys, unfortunately, I just can't keep doing this. So I had to leave the band. So my dream died because of money. And I was so pissed off. And that's why I went on that rabbit hole to figure this out. And after I was able to figure things out, and I did a ton of research, I started trying new things. Some of it didn't work, some of it did. And I got some like experience under my belt. I finally got myself out of debt. I finally got some money in the bank. I finally got my footing. And then I was like, I know for a fact that there's other people out there that felt the way that I did, and that sucks. And I don't want that for anyone. I don't want anyone to give up on their dream, whether it be playing music, starting a business, being able to provide for the family the way they actually want to, whatever it might be. I don't want anyone else to feel that. So I want to help other people experience what I experienced of getting out of that situation and getting into a place to where you can actually feel like abundant and have all these different opportunities come to you. And that's what kind of birthed, Sizemore Financial Coaching. I launched that June of 2020, like right in the middle of the pandemic, and haven't looked back since. It's been great, man. Over the last four and a half years, I've worked with, man, I don't know, like 250 people. And collectively speaking, they have seen a positive impact in their finances of over $1 million. I'm sorry, over $5 million collectively speaking. And it's been great, man. So that's my origin story. That's where it all comes from. Band guy turns financial coach. There you go.
A transformation you don't hear about too often, but nonetheless, a story indeed behind that. And I love really asking that question because you really never know what you're going to get. You really never know where that experience stems
Mhm.
from, where that interest came from or was peaked from, and what happened. And in your case, it was realization, it was reflection, but it was
Yep.
also a decision had to be made because, even in that situation alone, you could have still found a way out in a sense. It may not
Sure.
have been the most ideal thing. It may not have been something that it may have been something that you would have paid to for time to come, but you could have figured that out and you could have kind of kept just moseying around figuring things out in that way. But the fact that you chose to kind of just halt in a sense, realize that, hey, I can't ever allow myself to get to a position like this. But God forbid, I don't want anyone else to be in that position. I think that that also says a lot about who you are and the decision to step away. I know that wasn't easy, especially for just the experiences, the camaraderie, just everything, and just your passion where it lies. So to
Yeah.
have that is amazing. Now we got some feedback on the Instagram live here, and it's crazy about this question because the question was asked prematurely before I even asked the origin story, but your
Mhm.
origin story also kind of piqued this in my brain too. So what's your hack to start / have the financial conversation with those who may not be where they are? Because it's never an easy conversation to tell people what they're doing wrong, to give people that feedback. And some people just aren't receptive of things like that. So when you're going into a position when somebody has decided to be transparent and be
Mhm.
vulnerable, and just let you know what they have in front of them, and they recognize that, a change needs to be had, something needs to give. How do you really go about that? How do you really start that?
Just for clarification, so you're basically asking like how I would kind of start that conversation with someone who's maybe like taking a big, you know, vulnerable leap of faith of just even saying, "Hey,
Indeed. Like, yeah,
can you help me?"
you said
You
you
know?
spoke a lot to you speak sometimes to people who may be on that fence, like teeter tottering a little bit, may know that they kind of want to start that business, but may feel like, they don't know what resources to exhaust per se, or they don't know
Sure.
kind of where to go. Or maybe they feel like their financials, sometimes we overthink or we second guess ourselves. And a lot of times business owners, entrepreneurs, creators, we think that we just have to have this elaborate setup or this buku amount of money in order to really start. But
Mhm.
no, a start is really just a start. It could be putting pen to paper. It could be putting an idea or a vision up. It could be making that phone call or returning that email. So yeah, for you, when people kind of come to you with a vision, but are a little, apprehensive or maybe even a little nervous about it, how do you kind of ease that?
Yeah, man. So the first thing I would say is like I tell every single person that I talk to, I'm like, "Listen, before we even talk about anything, I want you to understand where my intentions are. I don't care if you pay me or not. I don't care if we work together or not. You came to me for help. That's what I'm going to give you first and foremost. And if you want to take that next step of getting more help, we can talk about that. Sure. But like I just want to provide you some value first and foremost, right? So the way that I kind of handle things is like, I know that this area of life is so um personal, and people have to be kind of vulnerable, especially with someone they've never really talked to before. So my big thing is like I just love asking a lot of questions first and foremost. So I'll ask you questions about like what your overall financial landscape looks like, like what your income is, debt, savings, investments, stuff like that. um, and then I might ask like a couple other questions that kind of give me like a little bit better of an idea of a what you want to see, but also b um, how things are affecting you. So I'll ask them like, what are your goals? Is it paying off debt? Is it starting a business? Is it whatever? But then I'll also ask them like, when you think about everything that is going on with your finances, what sort of like thoughts, emotions, or feelings come to mind, or do you typically experience? I'll also ask them like, if you were to be 100% honest with yourself, what do you feel is like the number one thing that's kind of standing in the way or kind of holding you back from having the money be where you really, really want it to be? And those two questions in particular are very telling because it's those two, how things affect them and what's holding them back. Those two are the ones where it really opens up that door to the money psychology side of things. So I'll usually take their answer and I'll say, "Can we talk about this a little bit deeper?" So maybe someone will say like, I feel like uh I feel like a failure, or I have like this imposter syndrome because I'm a, banker, but I can't, and I can, budget $1 million budgets, but I can't figure out my own finances, so I feel like I'm some fraud kind of thing. Right. So we'll go deeper into that and I'll start just asking open-ended questions like, okay, so what's actually causing you to feel this way? Like, and we just kind of have a conversation about it. If someone said that they have a spending problem, cool. we'll talk about that. Like, what's that look like? How does it feel when you spend? Where do you think that this really comes from? Stuff like that, right? So a lot of what I do is just asking questions. And then once I feel like I really understand the person on a really, really deep level, that's when I'll give them some feedback and I'll say, hey, so here's some feedback on your financial situation. This is what I think is possible for you. This is what I think you can do in the amount of time, and all that kind of stuff. Right. But then I'll usually, through the other conversation with the money psychology side of things, there's usually a few things that I'm able to kind of pinpoint that are like maybe missing for them that would really, really serve them if they got it in place. Uh, and then I just kind of give them feedback on that. I'll just say like, hey, based off of this conversation, this is what I think would really, really benefit you. And here's why, and here's where this comes from, and all that kind of stuff. And I just make sure that they understand everything really, really clearly so that they have the ability to do two things. Number one is just take that information and run with it themselves. Like if they want to say, hey, Cody, this call was great. Thank you so much. I'm going to go put this stuff in action and I'll keep you posted. Cool. That's fine with me. But also too, it might be one of those situations where someone's like, this all sounds awesome. I really, really think this is possible. But I really think that having someone in my court to help me hold myself accountable, guide me, whatever, that would really benefit me too. What would that look like? And then we can have that conversation too. But really, it's just about being open. It's just about asking questions and not being judgmental on it. There's so many people on the internet that they're like those financial gurus who will like throw up their YouTube shorts or whatever it might be. And they'll just rip into people. And that's cool because it's entertaining and it's funny and it's exciting, but it's not constructive to actually helping people, So that's one thing that if anyone's like, I don't want to reach out to this guy because he's going to make me feel like crap, that's not me. So I don't know if that answered the question, but hopefully it did.
Yeah, he said, rest assured, we're here to make you as comfortable as possible because vulnerability is never easy. And especially with finances, it's something that nobody ever wants to talk about the credit score. Nobody ever wants to talk about what happened or the debt or anything like that. But these are problems that are plaguing us, that are facing us, that the more we put them off, the more we don't address them, or the more we kind of just try to ignore them or turn the other cheek, the more that they can have drastic effects. And not just that immediate effect, but some of this stuff can really have long-term effects. And really, it can be things that you can be fighting back for years upon years upon years had it not be addressed. I love the inquisitive nature behind what you do, because I think that that's important. And it also goes to show, like you said, that I'm not really here to make a sale. I'm not really here to tell you, hey, it's me or the highway. I'm here to let you know that there are a lot of different things out there. There are a lot of different options. There are a lot of different routes. There are a lot of different resources. You chose to come to me for a reason, and I'm here to provide my service. And how I do that,
exactly,
it's just the same, and that's so important. I love to ask questions. I'm naturally, I think that may not come as a surprise to many people. That's why we're sitting here today. But
right.
It's so important to get down, as I call it, the nitty gritty, just really getting down to the bare bones, that foundation, figuring out where this all started, what happens, because with asking questions, you begin to uncover things. We begin to even learn things about ourselves. I had a interview earlier today, and it's not until you really start to talk about yourself or that people ask follow-up questions that you really realize, oh, I did do that, or oh, wow, that is like that. Maybe I do like, I tell people all the time, the hardest thing to do is really to talk about yourself. But if you make it easier, if you engage, you kind of let me know where we want to go or steer this in a way, you can go, because I forget things. I forget what I did back then. I had to pull up my resume mid-interview just to recognize, just to remember where I did that, when year was that, so it's hard sometimes to really just be able to do all of that. But when you have someone who you feel is on your side, like you said, is not here to be that guru that just makes you feel bad from living paycheck to paycheck, or bad about not necessarily having your finances in order, as if they weren't at one point in your position. I think that's kind of crazy too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one thing I just want to note, you had mentioned, learning more about yourself when you start talking to people about things. Dude, there have been more times than I can count where I've had a conversation with someone and they've said something along the lines of like, I never, ever, ever thought of it that way, but that makes so much sense as to why I behave this way with money, or why I think this way or believe this way about money. Because I understand now, like, where it comes from, and how it's affecting me. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you can help someone understand themselves better just through like one conversation, that's where the real magic happens. Like that's what you really need to have happen. And you're never ever going to get there if you just show up with like, this is the way I do things, take it or leave it. Like, no, like personal finance is personal, so like you have to be able to like dig deeper with that. And it's really, it is magical when that kind of experience happens with people.
We've been getting some great feedback on the IG Live, so I appreciate everybody tapping in with me. But Cody, I really think that you said it best. It's important that people realize, and the reason why I love to kind of dig deeper and ask these type of questions and have these conversations is because I don't want people to feel like I'm just bringing on big names or people who I'm just trying to sell something. I don't get anything from these interviews. When I say get anything, I mean like monetary or like anything like that. Like one is pure enjoyment, pure curiosity, but two is also to push that, have that impact, to make sure that people can educate themselves. There may be somebody who comes across this episode who feels as though their finances are not where they need to be. Or maybe there may be someone who thinks like me and says that there's always room for improvement, even with the savings, even with maybe high yield savings accounts, even with, putting money away, even with contributing however you do it, IRAs, 401ks, whatever you choose. There is always different options. There are always different ways to invest and make money and have your money then multiply and make money for you. So I love to really see how deep of a dive that you take into things, because it also just lets people know the genuine nature behind things. That look, we don't have to ever work together, but if you take that advice and you implement it and it helps, then I'm happy. I feel like it's a job well done. And I think that takes a special type of person, especially with someone who has been there, because you can easily be somebody who's been there and you can gatekeep. You can find the secrets out yourself. You can get that secret sauce and find out the foundation and find out what works for you. And it can just be tailored to you. But what people also don't realize too is that everything is not for everyone. The podcast episode that we dropped earlier today, episode 194, is entitled Everyone Can't Go. And it's just because, and in that episode, David, he was talking a lot about how we all want to make the sales. We all want to make the money. We all want to bring the revenue in. But every customer is not your ideal person. You have to always think about your why, what you're trying to do here. And if the why was to be authentic, was to be genuine, then you shouldn't just be worried about sale after sale after sale after sale. Sometimes you have to make those connections. Sometimes you have to put in that legwork, do those cold calls, do those cold emails with nothing to show for it. Because if you really love what you do, and if you're really passionate about financial coaching, AI automation, podcasting, weightlifting, anything like that, you're going to continue to do that regardless of what the outside or extenuating circumstances are. So I love that. Now, across my podcast, from audience to even interviewees, we've tackled a host of different industries: real estate, healthcare, financial coaching, AI, schools, everything that you can think of. I got people in clothing, people who make their own dog treats. I don't think I'll ever let that one go. When it comes to you and being niche specific, and there goes that siren I told y'all about. I told y'all if a siren could happen, it will happen. But no, so when it comes to different niches and industries, we recognize that there are a host of different business owners out there, a host of different entrepreneurs, a host of different creatives. When it comes to what you do specifically, are you niche specific? Can only certain people kind of come to you and say, hey, this is what I do? Do you specialize in anything? Or are you just open and bound? You're saying that, hey, if we have this sit down, we can really get to the nitty gritty. I can ask these questions. And at the end of the day, I can make sure that I can be of service or a resource to you. What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of both. If there's someone who's coming to me who wants some support, like I'm not going to turn them away. Like I'll at least like have a conversation with them. But I will tell you, like there is like a specific type of person that I really love serving the most. And that's just people who are like, they're wanting to get better control of their money. They're wanting to get themselves out of debt. They're wanting to build up their savings. They're wanting to start a business, get into real estate investing. Real estate investing is something that I'm really, really passionate about. So stuff like that, right? I could even give you like, I love working with people who are between the ages of 25 to 50, because that's me. Like, I'm 31 kind of thing. So those are my people, the millennials kind of thing. But really, dude, like if I were to say that I'm niche specific on anything, it wouldn't be age, it wouldn't be income level, it wouldn't be goals or what they're trying to accomplish. It wouldn't be any of that. Any of the demographic side of things, it wouldn't be that. It would really come down to what I would call like the psychographic side of things. So I look for a certain type of person, the people who are like really, really driven. The people who are just so fed up with dealing with this that they're not going to want to deal with this anymore. The people who are like, I'm going to be a massive person of integrity, and I'm going to take ownership of all of my successes that are to come, but also all of my shortcomings too. And understand that it's a me versus me journey. No one's going to save me. No one's going to hold me back. It's me kind of thing. Like, that's who I love working with. And if I was to be niche specific, it's those type of people. I've had great conversations with people that I think have a lot of potential, have a great situation to turn things around with, have good goals, all that kind of stuff, but they weren't that type of person. So I never even like steered the conversation in the way of like, hey, do you want to learn more about coaching? I just helped them. And then I just sent them on their way and told them to keep in touch. And if they have any questions, let me know. Because I don't want to, like, I want to work with people that are going to be best for me, because if I do that, that's going to be best for the people that I work with, So hopefully that answers your question. If there is any sort of niche, it's not really about the demographics. It's really about who you are as a person.
Got to want to work with those who are willing, who want to put the work in. I often think about that statement alone made me think about, you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink it. You can give everybody all the resources, tell them where to go, what to do, put it in a handbook, put it in a reel, put it in an email. It's up to them to capitalize on it. It's up to them to really want to take that step further and kind of want to go there and do that. So some more feedback that we got now on the IG Live. So as a coach myself, when my clients don't achieve their goals, it hurts. How do you deal with that? Can everyone truly be financially free?
Yeah. So I don't know if that person's a financial coach or if they're just a coach in general, but what I will say is this: generally speaking, you just can't make it about you, because it's not about you. Like, if you're a coach and maybe your client doesn't achieve the results that you think that they could or that they should, that's not on you. That's a them problem. It goes back to that thing that I said earlier. Like, it's a you versus you journey, right? So sometimes when I think that a lot of coaches struggle with this, and the reason for it is that we are painting in the picture, or we're painting a picture in our head that we're the hero for people, and that's just simply not the case. They're the hero. We are the guide. So think about it like Star Wars, right? Like, we are not Luke Skywalker. We are Yoda for Luke Skywalker, kind of thing, And when you understand that they're the hero and that we are not the savior, we're not, anything like that. We're the person who's guiding them and supporting them. Then all of a sudden, like, you not only separate yourself from their wins, but you also separate yourself from their shortcomings as well. And you just know that, like, at the end of the day, like, you're a good coach. You're doing what you need to do. You're holding them accountable. You're guiding them. You're supporting them. If you're giving your all and they're not taking it and running with it, that's not on you. That's not on you. So that's my biggest suggestion, is like, reframe that mindset of I'm the hero and it's about me versus I'm the guide and it's about my clients.
And I know he's not a financial coach specifically, but he's even been like a coach and a mentor to me. So I'm actually glad that
awesome.
I'm glad we decided to go Instagram Live today. We've been getting some good feedback, but I like the way that was worded. I even like the word shortcomings in replace of the word win. When you think of wins, and obviously you immediately just think of losses, but I like the word shortcomings because we like to turn losses into lessons here. We don't really like that word loss or lose or anything. So I like that. But I do think that differentiation is important in a sense. But I love the way that you frame that. He said great perspective himself, because I didn't think of it like that. When you become a mentor to someone, in a lot of cases that I have been, you take everything personal. You take that when they don't succeed. Oh, I didn't do something right. I didn't do, and a lot of times I think maybe we need to have a different frame of mind about that and think maybe, hey, what if everything was implemented correctly? What if I did lay out the foundation correctly? It just didn't go the way that it was supposed to. What if that person didn't execute to their entirety? But I think for us, we immediately place ourselves as the expert, as that person that's kind of like that top dog in a sense. So it's just like, look, I feel like I'm not doing my job, or I feel like I'm having to come up short now because I didn't necessarily propel them or push them where they needed to be. An interesting point that you brought up in the very beginning of this was the psychology around money, like that emotional aspect,
Mhm.
that appeal to it. And you said you feel like a lot of what people deal with and what they experience comes in the form of that. What do you mean by that? What do you, I understand there's a lot of emotion that comes with money, good, bad, ugly. I'm happy some days, I'm on a high day, pay week, it's my favorite week, payday. Oh, you got the best tomorrow. But on those days where it's check to check, or you kind of starting to figure out how is that getting paid, or what bill is that, or I need that, or what's going on like that. So when it comes to that emotion in the financial world or in the financial realm, what have you found to be experiences with people? Do you feel like why do you feel like emotion plays such a big role in the decisions that people make around their finances?
Man, it plays such a huge role because I mean we're human, like uh the money behaves a certain way and things happen to the money because of our choices and because of our behaviors. And that comes from, the mentality of things. Like it doesn't come from anywhere else, you know what I mean? So there's so many things I could talk to you about this. And there's a lot of like, it goes back to that thing I said earlier, like personal finances are personal. So every person is going to have a different experience, a different thing that they need to kind of like, recognize, understand, and overcome. But I will say that there are certain trends. I've been doing this enough with enough people for long enough that like there are some like kind of buckets that people tend to fall into. Um, so I'll give you a couple examples. First and foremost is just talking about someone's overall like relationship with money. So what I mean by that is like this could be, a belief system they have about money. It could be how they behave with money. It could be how money makes them feel, whatever it might be. But one thing that comes up quite often, especially with people who do have like that easy to spend kind of habit, right? Like they impulse buy, they buy because they're feeling down or because they're stressed or they're bored or whatever it might be, right? Like they just have a spending habit, right? One thing that I have found that comes to fruition often is that they're spending in the sense that they're trying to get some form of control over their lives. So what I mean by that is like maybe the way they grew up there wasn't a lot that they could control. Maybe they grew up with like, abuse in the household. Maybe they grew up with a broken family. Maybe they grew up just, kind of poor or paycheck to paycheck to where they were told no and not a lot, or they couldn't get, the nice thing that their friend had across the street, like that stuff kind of thing, right? So they were, just experiencing this over and over and over, and they were just kind of they were playing with the cards that they were dealt with, right? As they were growing up, going into their, adolescence and even maybe even early adulthood. But then they grow up, they go off on their own, they get their big boy or big girl job, they're making big boy or big girl money. And now all of a sudden they're like, no one can tell me no. I can do what I want, not because it maybe should be what I do, but simply because I can do it. Right. And that feeling of like autonomy, that feeling of control just lights them on fire. And they're just like, yes, like I can do this now. Right. So then they go off and they spend their money and it's all great in the moment. But then at the end of the month or, right before the next paycheck, they're stressing hard again because all that money went away. Right. Well, that entire time they weren't going after the stuff. They weren't going after the new sneakers. They weren't going after the new PlayStation. They weren't going after, the caramel macchiato. What they were really going after was like just this sense of autonomy. They're really going after that sense of control. And that's a very, very interesting thing to understand because that very thing that they were going after, which is that sense of control, is actually that thing that's putting them out of control with their finances. Except this time it's different because when they were growing up, they didn't have a choice. But this time, they're willingly doing it to themselves and they hate it, So that's just one example with like the relationship with money side of things. Another example might be talking more about a different element of like money psychology. So you brought up like, your why. Now we were talking about starting your business and stuff like that, but it's the same thing with your finances. Like you got to find that why that just literally lights you on fire. Like I'll ask people like, well, why do you want to be debt free? And they'll say things like, because I don't want to stress out about money anymore. And it's like, okay, cool. What does that mean? Like, so like peel back a layer and then ask yourself a question about that. And then another layer and another layer. And it's like a 7-layer dip kind of thing until you find an answer that's literally so powerful that like, it's something that's actually worth fighting for because it actually freaking matters, because if you can find that, bro, it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter like if there's a car issue, if there's a job loss, if there's, if the whole process of getting yourself out of debt starts to like lose its luster and all that kind of stuff and becomes boring, like that thing, like that reason why is going to be the thing that helps you push through those barriers that life tries to throw in front of you all the time to help you actually see it through versus just reverting back to when you're in that very low moment and you ask yourself like, why the heck am I even doing this to myself? And you say like, oh, well, I just don't want to be stressed about money. Well, you're going to be stressed about money in that moment. So you're going to be like, well, clearly this isn't working. So I might as well just stop because it's not worth it, kind of thing. So like there's and that's just a couple things, right? So there's so many things that we could talk about there, but I think that just a couple things for context would be helpful. So
that's important too, because I love the point that you touched on about peeling back the layers, because oftentimes I don't think sometimes we don't necessarily know the why behind something, or we don't, we know the why, but it's not until we really dive or dig a little bit deeper that it's just like, oh, well, this was actually rooted in something else. And what I'm starting to slowly but surely realize is that a lot of the behaviors that we exhibit as adults or parents or grandparents or aunts, uncles, anything like that could be tied back to how we were raised, how we had those interactions, how we had those conversations or different things, or lack thereof. Like you said, if you felt like you kind of grew up under wraps or not really being able to do too much, then now that you have that A word, that autonomy, it's just like, oh, well, I got money to blow. That's all I was thinking of in my head when you were saying, I was just going like this. Sometimes it's like that because you've never had the opportunity to be able to do that. But if you really take a step back and if you really analyze, you'll realize that this is the reason why you still feel like you have those shackles on. You can't really move. So I do like the point that you also touched on too about seeing it through, about life comes in phases and waves and everything of the sort like that. So do you allow that wave to kind of consume you, and do you keep going? Or do you take that hit, but you get back up, you set yourself back up and you go, fall down 9, get up 10 though. I think that that's so important because the emotion, the mental behind things is so crucial. I tell people all the time, when I can always tell when my mental is off, because it affects so many different other areas of my life. And I just don't feel like I'm giving my best self, or I'm being my best self, or I'm really living up. And time again, I tie it back to, I'm not thinking right. I'm not feeling right. Maybe my sleep, and this week, my sleep has been off and I've just been feeling it, and just my procrastination has increased a little bit because I'm too busy thinking about being tired or things like that. But do I allow this to consume me? Do I keep complaining about it? Or do I just make changes? Do I maybe hydrate a little bit more, maybe get to sleep a little bit earlier, maybe wind down, maybe just a little bit more, maybe prioritize some things so that I can still knock out what I have to do and get an adequate amount of rest on top of the travel. So it's so important for those checks and balances. And it's even more crazy because you probably see a host of different things and just dealing with so many different people. Like you said, you're probably dealing with people on this side of the spectrum, in the middle of the spectrum, on that side of the spectrum. Some people aren't even on the spectrum that you still have to, some make shift and make things happen with. So with thinking about Sizemore financial coaching specifically, I always love to, we clearly have talked about why this happened, the origin. We clearly have been able to push through and figure out what you're doing and kind of how you're trying to change and move around there. I'm always curious now because, as I said in the beginning, we're going to have some newcomers. We're going to have some people who you spoke to during this episode. We're going to have some people who, oh, he said something that I like. I need that. I'm willing to take the steps. I'm willing even just to sit down and have a conversation. I want to do that. So for those people, for the people too, like myself, who are going to now be following along this journey from today and thereon, what can we expect moving forward? Is there anything that Sizemore Financial Coaching is trying to get into? Is there anything you guys are experimenting with as we think about kind of moving towards the end of this year and even preparing for 2025? Is there anything that we can be on the lookout for? Anything on the horizon for you guys?
Yeah. So there's actually a couple things. So I am hosting on September 23rd. I'm actually hosting like a free, like online kind of masterclass for people. So, like you can just register for that and, it's free. So it really only takes you like 30 seconds to sign up. But what that masterclass is it's titled something that I have found to be true in almost every single person that I talk to. And it's literally titled this: you have way more money than you think. 5 secrets to unlock your money and live your dream life now, kind of thing. So that's happening on the 23rd of September, 6:30 Eastern. And it's over Zoom. So you can, join from whenever. But if you can't make that, I also have just like a pre-recorded kind of like webinar as well. It's a similar kind of setup, but it's a different kind of thing. So that one's called Master Your Money, 5 simple shifts to rapidly eliminate debt and amplify your wealth. And you can find that as like a direct link. You can just type in like masteryourmoney.support and it'll take you straight to it. Not .com, because that's not what I'm about. I'm about the support. So it's masteryourmoney.support and it'll take you right there. Right. So that's just a couple of events and resources that I have currently going on. But right now, man, I'm just really focused on like just talking to people, really focused on just having more and more conversations, whether they become clients or not, just talking to them, helping them out, and just kind of going from there, and it kind of goes back to our earlier conversation. Like, I'm not trying to make every single person a client, like, just like 2 weeks ago, I had a call with someone, or he shot me a message 2 weeks ago. I had a call with him probably like 3 months ago. And he shot me a message and said, "Hey dude, just want to give you a heads up. I ended up paying off my car and I now have $7,000 in the bank. Thanks for your help." And I was like, sweet. This wasn't even a client of mine. It's someone I had one conversation with, So that's kind of what's going on in my world right now. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I want to check out that masterclass, I want to check out that webinar, you can, find both of those at, masteryourmoney.support.
And I'll be sure to share those as well. I don't think I've ever visited a .support. So
Yeah, there you go. One of a kind.
I'm definitely interested in that for sure. But no, I love to ask that question too, because I love to just give people the outward look to see what's going on, because you've clearly multiple times during this podcast offered yourself as a resource, told people that, hey, look, we haven't even discussed a number of what clients look like or anything like that. We've talked about those conversations, building those connections, figuring out what's going right, what's going well. And like you said too, that the results speak for themselves. The fact that, like you said, people who you didn't even necessarily take under your wing in full capacity, but just maybe connected with one time or talked about or answer some things for them or even put their mind at ease, they're following up with you. They're letting you know kind of what's happened, testimonials, everything of the sort. So time and time again, I always tell my listeners, I always tell my audience, everybody, no matter how you're tapping in with me, take advantage of these conversations, because I do. I tap in with these people. I connect on LinkedIn. I ask the questions that sometimes y'all are too afraid to ask or just don't want to ask or maybe too prideful over. I'm putting everything to the side, because I know what I want. I know where I want to be. And I know what I also want for others. I want for those under me. I want for those around me. So I can't get there by being stagnant, by not doing my due diligence, by not wanting to put in that work, by not listening, because I think it's just really about listening and applying. That's not really a hard concept. So before we officially wrap things up, before we close things out, before we tell people where they can find you, connect with you, everything of the sort, do you feel like there's anything that we have not touched on today that you want to leave the people with? Do you feel like there's any last words even that you have for other entrepreneurs, business owners, whether they be in the financial side of things, not be in the financial side of things, or even people out there who you may just be speaking to just generally? Anything?
Yeah, man. I think that probably the only other thing that I would say is this topic and this, thing that we deal with in life called money. It's a very personal and touchy subject. It could, some people say it's taboo, right? So there's probably like a lot of like you mentioned, pride or shame or guilt or fear around just talking to someone about it. And I just want to let you know, like, that's okay. It's very understandable. But I think that one of the things that has really helped turn my life around, and this goes back to when I was first figuring out my own personal finances, is just having that strength and that humility to reach out to someone for help. I became a coach because I went through financial coaching myself. And I realized like how life changing it was for me. And that's why I wanted to, help people as well. Um, and I would be lying to you if at first, when I had that initial conversation with them, that I wasn't reluctant about it. I wasn't fearful about it. I was like, I wasn't unsure about what was going to happen and all this kinds of stuff. Like I had all of those feelings, but it took that strength and that humility to start that conversation. And looking back, that was probably one of the most like impactful decisions that I've ever could make, because not only did it change my life with my finances, but it also changed my life with my career and my impact and what I'm doing now. Like, this has become more of a passion for me than music ever was. And there was a point in my life that I thought nothing could top music, nothing, but this has, so, that's not me trying to say like, oh, reach out to me. That's just me saying, like, whether it be me, whether it be someone else, whether it even be your spouse, because there are maybe some married people who, don't really have that transparency within their own relationship. I don't care who it is. What I am telling you is, like, if you're feeling like you're being held back in some way, if you're feeling like that you're capable of more, but you're just unsure about how to get there, start the conversation. Start the conversation and do it boldly, So that's my parting, message to people.
Man, wow. I'm gonna just let y'all host the podcast the next time. I got my guy Aaron on here, who was the coach, who was saying, it was much needed for everybody. I got my boy Dre on here doing just the same. But no, Cody, really, I think through and through, from the time we started until now, I see the passion. I hear the passion. As someone who, would have never guessed themselves to be a start a podcast, but nonetheless a podcast with business owners, entrepreneurs. I'm a sports guy, so I could have been talking sports since 2019. You know what I'm saying? But the fact that I've been able to, do this, see this, and really truly develop and really realize that, there's nothing more that I love than this. I definitely sense that with you, and I sense that experience. But I also sense, as you said, it just takes that start. It just takes that leap. It just takes being willing. And I think that will take you a longer way than anything will. I can't tell you how many times where I second guessed something, or was apprehensive about something, or didn't do something, or maybe it was in my head, or was worried about what the outside was thinking. And then as soon as I took that step, I said, man, I should have did this months ago, weeks ago, years ago. I should have just never considered. I should have did it as soon as it crossed my mind. So now whenever something crosses my mind, or whenever I'm thinking about something, if I can do it, if I can achieve it, it's happening every single time. So Cody, obviously, again, thank you for offering yourself as a resource. I'm very excited to see what's to come. I'm very excited to tap into this masterclass, the webinars, but I'm also excited just to see how this continues to build, how the impact continues to broaden, and how people just continue to change for the better and move forward. Now, for the call to action, as I like to say, for the part where, as we said, we figure out who really wants to take that leap, who really wants to, make that change, whether it be with you or whether it be just in some realm or some fashion. Can you just let everybody know the best places to reach you when it comes to social media, websites, everything you got?
Mm-hmm. Sure, man. Social media, just look up Sizemore Financial Coaching on all platforms. So, you'll be able to find me there. As far as getting connected with me goes, I think that probably the number one thing that I want you to do first is, before we even have a conversation, I want you to get some value from me. So take that free, webinar, so just masteryourmoney.support. All you got to do is just put in your name and email. That's it. So, just put that in, you'll get access to it. Watch the webinar. And if you feel like you like it, you feel like you have more questions, you feel like you want to take that next step, there will be a button on there that you can book a call with me as well. So you're welcome to do that too. So that's probably the best way. Like, I don't want you just to hop on a call with me. I want you to get something out of it first and then hop on a call with me, so that's the best way. Masteryourmoney.support.
All right, y'all. I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know really what else to say, unless y'all want to hear some sports. It's football, like we said. Football is back. By the time y'all probably hear this, we'll be some weeks in, so we can talk some teams and we can see where everybody's at, and if people want to take the hats off or keep them on or do what we're gonna do. So, but no, Cody, thank you so much for everything. As I spoke about in the beginning, thank you just for the flexibility. Thank you for just understanding. Thank you for still hopping on and taking the time to do this with me on a Friday at that. So, wishing you all the best from Down to Business to Sizemore Financial Coaching. Very excited to continue to stay tapped in. Very excited to tune into the masterclass. And for everyone else who listens, for everybody who joined us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Instagram, I'm running out of platforms at this point. There's too many cameras, too many lights, but this is all good, from the feedback to just the entertainment to just the value. I definitely think that's the biggest thing. And for me, I just want that value. I want somebody to walk out of here, to close that screen, to hit end, and to feel like they learned something today, or to feel like they want to do a follow-up. They want to get on that call. They want to do that masterclass. So to everybody who continuously taps in with us, tunes in with us, I love y'all. I thank y'all. This has been another episode of the Down to Business podcast here with Tamar Turner.